We are live. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Dr. Kat. How are you?
Good morning, Carmen. Good morning, everybody.
Welcome, everyone. Once again, it's Monday morning. This is CBD with your favorite PhD. And the topic that we're going to tackle today is a question that we get often as well, but it's a very important question. How do you know how to choose what type of hemp CBD? What's the criteria that you should have when choosing this for your body, Dr. Kat?
Well, thank you, Carmen. Yes, choosing CBD can be very tricky. And there are many types of CBD, and they're basically how they are extracted and made. And it really starts from the beginning. But today I want to start with a little story. I think adding a little bit of stories is important. I hear testimonials all the time. We have research, we have history, and then we have the stories that people tell us. Today is my story. So yesterday I went to Enlightened Float. I like to promote our local businesses in San Ramon. It's right down the street from our office. And they offer a floating system where you eliminate all your senses and you're floating in magnesium water for an hour and you shut your mind down. And if you have a mind like mine, it's very hard to shut down. I'm always thinking, creating. And so I went in there and I couldn't get my mind down. So we have a new CBD. It's a raw CBDA along with the regular CBD full spectrum, which I will talk about today. And I thought I'd try it. And I put just a little drop because it's new and we always start slow. And
Sure.
I almost instantly realized that I went into a relaxation where normally it can take me 30 minutes into the float to calm my mind down. So I'm very excited about it. So let's get started. And thank you for allowing me to share my story.
Yeah, of course, of
And
course.
whoever can float, float. We should do a whole episode on floating and the
I was just thinking about
toxins
that.
because it eliminates toxins. So, all right, show and tell today. Why toxins? As part of CBD, we float to eliminate toxins. We try to have an environment that's free of toxins. We hear about the environment all the time. We're doing natural things. CBD is an over the counter natural supplement. And yet, this plant is so hardy that when you put it in the earth, it sucks up all the amazing nutrients. But it also sucks up toxins. It cleans the surface. And it's been known in the history to be put in battlefields or places where there has been toxic waste to suck it up. So, one of the most important things that you're going to want to look for in a CBD is to be toxin free. And the way that you do that is to make sure that the product that you purchase is third party tested. I cannot tell you how important this is. You will hear, I'm on several blogs and I hear a few people saying, why, do we need 30 party tested? And owners of companies will come on and say, we spend a lot of money, we test our product, we want to make sure that we're giving you something good. But when asked if it's third party tested, they say no, they don't feel the need to do so. Well, it's because it's expensive. And third party tested will tell you about whether there's mold, and we've talked about mold in the other session, how much THC, how many other CBD cannabinoids there are in there, the metals, the pesticides, and it's non-biased analysis. And they should be able to provide that for you. So you're going to look for something that's third party tested to get rid of toxins. The other thing we want to talk about is pure, natural, food grade, and organic. Did you want to ask something, Carmen?
No, not at all.
Oh,
I'm,
okay.
I'm just
So,
processing everything that you're saying.
so here's pure, natural, food grade, and organic. But I want to talk about pure versus isolate later. You and I talk about everywhere the importance of pure. But pure is also used in a type of CBD. So when somebody says, I have a pure CBD, they're not talking about what we're talking about. They're not talking about natural food grade or organic, even though, yes, it can be. Pure means there is only CBD in there. They have removed every other element. There's nothing else in it. And so you're getting just the CBD. What we want to also talk about, besides making sure we have a pure and natural, is how the CBD is extracted. So that's another thing to look at. Extraction. You want a CO2 extraction. It is the highest concentration of CBD. It's called a hemp extract because CBD needs to be extracted. You want something that doesn't have a solvent extraction, and this type of extraction tends to be a little bit more expensive, but it is the preferred, because if you're going to use CBD, you want the full. And this is why we always talk about product label. Yes, of course, the more agriculture we're going to have, the more plants we have, the more affordable it will be, like everything. But your price is a selling point. I think I mentioned before, I saw a commercial that said, "Why pay high prices? Try our balm," which is what people are selling, on TV,
Sure.
because it's
Sure.
considered more safe, because you're not taking it in your mouth orally. They say it's only $20, and then you look at the label. There's nothing there. It might not be third party tested. I have to tell you that I will not put something that inexpensive on my body.
Right.
So what we want to look for once we have those criteria, and a quick review: how it's extracted, preferably CO2, third-party tested, non-toxic, natural, pure, and or organic. We want to look for a full spectrum. A full spectrum means that the whole plant is in there. Being a natural health educator and integrative medicines, we always look at the whole. When I do anything, whether I'm cooking or talking about supplements, and you hear me, you'll say, nothing goes to waste. Everything goes in, because we are whole. When we separate it, it actually it's not whole anymore, and our body has a harder time trying to figure out what's going on. So the whole plant. Full spectrum does have 0 to 0.03 THC. There are people who may take large amounts and they're worried about the THC. And I'm talking about multiplying 0.03 by what you're taking. And we're talking about large amounts of CBD, which we don't take. But let's say somebody needs it because they're battling something chronic. Then we tend to recommend a broad spectrum. Broad spectrum is the whole plant minus the THC. And sometimes what I tell people is, if you want the full plant, you may take a small dose of this full spectrum and then your larger dose of the broad spectrum. But this is individualized, law enforcement, people who get tested may prefer the broad spectrum. It doesn't have anything to do with the psychoactivity of the plant, because it will not make you high. This will not make you high, and this will not make you high, but testing if people are concerned. And we do want the full plant. The other thing is, we talked about briefly, is the CBD isolate, which is the CBD only. And we noticed that a lot of people are now making drinks with that in there. So because it can get crystallized, there's nanotechnology, and you can turn it into a powder. So you can mix it. We've talked about how the oil, we've talked about Bourbon, mixing it, and, the oil and water doesn't mix. So how are you going to put CBD into liquid? And that's another way, and that's what you see. So you typically tend to see an isolate and not so much the full spectrum. What I do recommend, if somebody doesn't want to take a lot of a full spectrum, but they want extra CBD, they can do an isolate on top, similar with the broad spectrum. So it's pretty tricky. That's why the consultations are very important. So earlier when I told my story, I talked about CBD raw. It's called CBDA. It's the acidic for A in the CBD, which tends to go away when you heat it. When you heat, that's why how you process it, how you extract it is important, because the more you heat it, the more you lose the components that are in there. And the CBDA, which is the raw, is one that's gotten lost, but it's getting a lot of attention. I remember we were saying a few years ago, CBD is getting a lot of attention. CBDA is getting a lot of attention recently, and we just started carrying it, and we can see already the difference in the level of anxiety because it adds another layer. It's unfiltered. So if you
Right.
think of unfiltered olive oil. We talked about a lot. There is so much more that you're going to hear, but this is what you want to look for when you're purchasing your CBD.
Thank you, Dr. Kat. I know that this is a lot of material and a lot to process. And I believe sometimes when we have these videos, we end up having more questions based on the new information. So for everyone watching and who's going to watch later in your watch parties, etc., how do they get more information? Because if they're going to have more questions, they need to know where to go.
Come to the expert. I am reading streams. Every day I'm reading because I'm learning and I'm writing. And every time I want to write, there's something new that comes out and it holds me back. But the things that I'm reading are questions that other people are answering based on their experience. And you can tell that they don't always know. And when experts who sell the product chime in, they may be selling their own product, and that's bias. And so I think the expert who is there to provide information regarding your wellness. Am I having anxiety? I can't sleep. What do I take? Come to us. We offer consultations, and we also offer what I just showed you in a pure natural food grade CBD. And the way they can contact us is through our telephone, which is 925-216-3510. They can go onto our website at insightforwellness.com on the contact page. And there's more information listed there on CBD and who we are and who the practitioners are. And of course, you can message us here. You can ask us questions here. We're here for you.
Great. Thank you so much. I know we took a little bit of extra time today, but that's the way it rolls sometimes because there is so much information. And I think in the future, we might also circle back and dive more deeply into the different aspects that you touched on today. But that's it for today. Thank you so much, Dr. Kat. Thank you all for tuning in, and we'll see you next week on CBD with your favorite PhD. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.